readers, I'm Amy and I'm your nonfiction feminist. Welcome here to the end of June. It's been a really long month, so I didn't do nearly as much reading as I did in May, but also May was a fluke. Don't expect that level of accomplishment from me. I don't know that I'll ever read 14 books in a month again. I will certainly try, but that was a lot for me. What else? I started my I Don't Read That video series this month, which I will link down below. That's a project that I've been thinking a lot about lately. I've been really excited for it. It's genres and authors and other such things that I don't read, but books in those sets that I've actually really enjoyed. So definitely check that out. Let me know what genres you don't really read, or books that you've liked from genres that you don't generally reach for, because I think that's super interesting. This month, for the Devourer TBR challenge that I'm taking part in on Goodreads, we did Jazzy June. So this month for Jazzy June we were focusing on rereads, and I did not do as much rereading as I would have liked, but I also have a lot of books on my shelves that I've been super excited for that are not rereads. But it was nice to focus on rereading some books that I've really loved. And for that I started with the Book of the Unnamed Midwife and went on to the Book of Edda. These are part of the Road to Nowhere series. I started it probably about a year ago. Really loved it. I will link my review that I just did down below. I finished off the series, or the trilogy, with the Book of Flora, which was not a reread for me because this is a newer book. I reread the beginning of the series and finished off with the book that I hadn't read before. So these were, I think, my only books for Jazzy June for this month. But yeah, I'm not really going to talk about these because I have a 40-minute review that I linked below because I had a lot to say. Just know that this series is completely amazing. And next up we have a book that also popped up on my vlog that I did at the beginning of this month for my beginning of June vacation, and that is Women Talking. I'm planning on having a review for this out later this week. This was awesome. This is actually an own voices fiction, so Miriam Taus is how I'm going to say her last name, used to be a Mennonite growing up, and this book is about a group of women who are Mennonites, it's kind of like, say Amish or Hutterite, like they have their own little kind of culture, very religious, very patriarchal. They're talking about how they were being attacked at night, and it ended up being a large group of men from their Mennonite colony who were drugging them and raping them. And this is a conversation between 3 generations of the women involved, anywhere from the age of 3 to older women, probably in like their 50s or 60s maybe. And they are talking about whether they should stay, whether they should leave. They have discussions about forgiveness and moving on, and just a conversation that you wouldn't necessarily expect from people growing up in this particular culture. So it was really awesome. I will say this is not exactly action-packed. When it's titled Women Talking, it is actually just a book of women having this dialogue, but I thought it was awesome, the discussions that they had in this. So please check this out. Again, I will have a review later this month, or later this week, if you want to know more about this. Definitely 5 stars from me. And then all of the other books that I did this month were actually on audiobook, which is really good for me because I don't do like a ton of audiobooks. I'm starting to read audiobooks more. That's just usually not the way that I take in information. I'm more visual rather than auditory when it comes to reading and taking in information in general. So I continued the Themis or Themis. I feel like the book actually says it both ways. I continued the Themis Files trilogy with Waking Gods, which is probably one of the best, if not the best, sequel that I have read in a series or in a trilogy, because usually you have like second book syndrome where there's not really a lot going on, sort of a thing. But Waking Gods was really good. Continues the story about some alien robots that were found on Earth, and then they're dealing with alien invasions. I really enjoyed the audiobook for this. It's one of those full cast ones. I will say, in this series, the voice for Eva bothered me, because in book 2, Eva's 10 years old, and she grew up in Puerto Rico, so you've got someone with kind of a, I'm going to say like a Spanish or a Mexican or a Puerto Rican accent. I don't actually know where the reader is from, but she was definitely not 10 years old, which bothered me. And then later this month, I finished off the series with Only Human, and they completely recast the character of Eva, or the voice for Eva. So she had more of, I think, a New York accent, which doesn't make any sense because she grew up in Puerto Rico for the first, say, 10 years of her life, and then spent the rest of her time on an alien planet. So the casting for that was weird. I actually liked the second book better than the third. The third, it was like a lot of book for not a lot really happening. It was more like kind of the politics of everything that's going on the other planet and on Earth. So, third book was alright. It finished the series. I don't read a lot of series, so I'm glad that I read this one, and I don't do as much sci-fi as I would like. I'm going to try reading more sci-fi later this year, because I really enjoyed this series. I also listened to The Grown-Up by Gillian Flynn. This is the last Gillian Flynn that I needed to read. I loved this. It's a novella. Listened to the audiobook, and the ending was like, seriously? The ending was good. The story was good. You've got a woman who is a sex worker and then turns over to doing like psychic reading type things, or she does a little bit of both. She's just trying to kind of make her way through the world. Comes across a woman who needs help with her house. It's got kind of these haunted vibes. I really, really enjoyed this. Like, this was good. I don't do a lot of novellas. I definitely don't do a lot of short story collections. I'm doing more novellas this year, and I'm actually really enjoying them, because they tend to be longer than a short story, shorter than a book, you know. But really loved this. I love Gillian Flynn as an author in general. I also continued with Gillian Flynn. Oh, this is my other reread for the month, actually. I did a third reread, and that was Sharp Objects. This is actually my least favorite book by her. In reading it again, like, I really enjoyed the way that it ended, the way it wrapped things up. But it's definitely more of a slow burn book for me, and you don't really have things coming together or adding up until the very end. It's just kind of, this thing happened and that thing happened, and why are these people so weird and awful? Not my favorite of hers. It doesn't have as much explanation throughout the book as I think it could, but I still enjoyed it. I've also been in a super dark and creepy mood, so between The Grown-Up and Sharp Objects and the books I'm reading now, like, I don't know where all the creep vibes came from, but I'm really into the creepy stuff lately. And let's see, the last one that I did for this month was actually my first Kindle book in a while, which, by the way, the audiobooks I got off of my Libby app. Flowers for Algernon I also read on the Libby app from my library. Flowers for Algernon I've heard a lot about. I heard it was going to make me cry, but it was like a really good mental health book. I didn't cry. It was very emotional, but I feel like it was too long. So you basically have this rat, Algernon, who is tested on to heighten his intelligence, and then they do this test on a human, Charlie, I think his name was. I tend to forget a lot about books whenever I move on to the next one. But the guy they do the testing on is developmentally disabled. It's not Down syndrome, it's just like not all there. And he's like really impatient, but he's trying to learn a couple things to try and get his intelligence up after the surgery. Then he gets really, really, really smart, and then he has a decline in his intelligence, and you're kind of just seeing how he changes as a person, and how his outlook on life changes. And I feel like the book was unbalanced. So you have kind of a slower beginning where he's like slowly getting more intelligent and realizing what's going on with his friends and his life and how he's like learning more stuff, and then this really long middle section where he's just a really smart human being who's trying to deal with a lot of emotions because he's emotionally not growing as fast as he is intelligence wise. And then the ending is pretty fast. So I feel like a lot of stuff in the middle you could have just cut out. You also had some of the weird therapy moments. I don't really like these in books, where he's doing like self-discovery and he's talking about how part of his life is like going into a black hole, and just some of those odd conversations that don't really make a lot of sense, don't really fit into the book as well. Just, if it was me, I would have cut a lot out of this middle section and made it a much shorter book. I think I would have gotten more out of it that way. But I enjoyed it. It was alright. It was a fair book. What I was talking about earlier, while I'm thinking about it, with wanting to read more sci-fi books, next month, July, is actually Sci-Fi July for Devourer TBR. I've definitely decided I'm going to read Andy Weir's The Martian. I've been hearing good things. My husband enjoyed it quite a bit. I should really probably read that by now. I want to reread Sphere by Michael Crichton. It is one of my top favorite Michael Crichton books, next to Jurassic Park. I'd have to look at our sci-fi shelf and see what else we have going on. I've been back and forth on reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I tried reading it once before, and it was so nonsensical. I don't think it was quite my style. I don't do a lot of humor reading in general. Yeah, books that I'm reading right now. I may or may not finish these by Sunday night. Today is Saturday. I'm not expecting to finish any of these by Sunday night, but I will have a little pop-up if I do as I talk about them. I am reading Robin McKinley's Sunshine. This is a vampire book. This girl is kidnapped by vampires. She has to deal with kind of the fallout from that and her PTSD and everything. I'm enjoying it well enough. It is, I guess, a fantasy book. If I'm going to read fantasy, I'd rather it be standalone. I love me some vampires. I used to read about the sparkly vampires in high school. Not anymore. I like the dark and broody vampire stories, which again goes back to the really dark mood that I've been in lately. I am enjoying it. I do think that this book is either too long or too short. She's got a lot of add-ins about demons and succubi and all these other kind of mythical, fantastical creatures. I feel like she should either have just focused on the vampires or made a much longer book where she could do more world building. As it is, it's kind of popped in here and there, so I'm enjoying the story, but all the add-ins about the other creatures are getting really distracting because I don't think this book is long enough to really validate having that much about other creatures in there, and trying to build this political world that you don't really have time for and isn't really the focus of your story. So I'm kind of back and forth on my feelings for this book. I am also getting on to my third Daphne du Maurier. I finally started My Cousin Rachel. Not as far in this one. I am really, really enjoying it. He's supposed to be deciding whether or not his cousin Rachel, who is pretty newly married to his cousin Ambrose, he's trying to decide if Rachel killed Ambrose. And for being this far in the book, Rachel actually seems like a pretty nice person so far, but I trust Daphne du Maurier, so I'm gonna see what kind of suspicions she brings up, although they better be pretty soon, so we'll see. I'm wary, but I'm still really excited because Daphne du Maurier is probably my top favorite female author ever. I just started reading her in this last year. I really, really enjoyed her, so we'll see what she's got going on. And I will link my try a chapter tag down below. I focused on Stephen King, decided I was going to read Rose Madder, and this book, also not too far into this, I am enjoying this. I'm also, there's a lot of triggering stuff going on in here. It's about a woman who has been abused by her husband and has decided to run off and try and build a life of her own. I'm enjoying it. However, this book is reminding me a lot of when I was younger, say late middle school, junior high, early high school, and I would be at home flipping through the TV and decide to watch a Lifetime movie, because Lifetime movies were dark and broody and all about girls running from abusive husbands or getting raped or something. For some reason I found those movies really interesting. That's what Rose Madder feels like. It feels like one of those abused women Lifetime movies, which are kind of like guilty pleasure movies for me. Like, kind of trashy and poorly done, but you like watching them anyways. That's what Rose Madder feels like. So I'm enjoying this book, but it also feels like a Lifetime movie. Do with that what you will. It does have something about this picture that is slowly changing the more she looks at it. She just bought this painting, and it's like not getting bigger, but it's going out more, so you're seeing more and more in the picture. And I have no idea what it has to do with the rest of the story. I'll probably go ahead and wrap these up in July and tell you how I ultimately ended up feeling about them. I'm enjoying this. It's so far definitely not Stephen King's best work, but that doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. And lastly, I started on the audiobook for Nosferatu. I had read, or I'd listened to part of this in a couple of car rides with my husband, and figured it was about vampires, so I'd go ahead and listen to it. It's not quite what I was thinking it was going to be. Like, I was thinking that Charlie Manx, kind of our main villain, was a vampire turning kids into vampires. I think the kids are definitely vampires. I'm not sure what Charlie Manx is, though, because he doesn't seem to be very vampirical. And you have the girl Vicky, who is a creative, where she can do things with an item that she loves. So you have Maggie, I think her name was, can kind of predict things using Scrabble tiles because she really, really likes words. And Vicky can find things, like she can transport herself across this bridge to the place where a lost item was that she's looking for by going on her bike, because she really, really loves her bike. And Maggie says that she'll be the one who can find the Wraith, which is Charlie Manx. So I guess I was thinking like a wraith and a vampire would be the same thing. I don't know. It's interesting, but I don't know where it's headed or really what the point of the story is going to be yet. So we'll see how that goes. But that is what I have for this month. That has been my wrap-up. Let me know if you're reading any of these. Let me know what you're planning on reading next month. Also, announcement, I do have a reading challenge that I'm going to be announcing later this month that I really hope you all will take part in with me. I was going to call it a readathon initially, but a readathon is where you're reading as many books of whatever type as you can within a certain period of time. Considering life things lately, I just don't really have the patience for something like that, or I don't want to drive myself that much. So I'm going ahead and calling it a reading challenge. It's probably going to be about a month long, and just try and get to these books within this month, which I've decided is going to be either August or September. Got a couple more decisions to make on that. But the reading challenge will be focusing on backlist books because I love backlist books. I think BookTube has a huge focus on new books, so this is definitely going to be a challenge for some people. But I hope you all join me on that challenge. I'm really, really excited to give you more details. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your June, enjoy your July. I will see you later this week. Bye.